love is always here.
Nicely put, Dr. Bach.
So I'd like to start with theosophy, since we are already in the West. And Colonel Olcott and Madame Blavatsky adopted Krishnamurti, who's one of your favorites.
Yes, that's true.
And I read a lot about Krishnamurti. He was one of my favorites as well. And there was a period of time where he actually rejected the teachings and rejected the notion that he was somehow divine. And then some years later, 20, 30 years later, he became awake and remembered all the teachings and then said, oh yes, I am divine, and then started teaching again. So that he is the actual living representation of that same journey, where he was given a gift, denied the gift, and then became awake, and then received it, and then began teaching. Now, the difference between being awake and being enlightened, you have to become awake first. Now, enlightened, most people assume has to do with being in the light or of the light, but it really means to become light. That means to let go of all the things that weigh you down.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point, Doctor, because that is profoundly true, that enlightenment is, part of it is a letting go. And when you let go, the spirit rises or soars. So I do think that discovery of that additional meaning in the term of enlightenment is very, very productive, very helpful. But I still think that there is a important difference between the Western notion of enlightenment and the signification of the term in the Eastern traditions. And it's important for us to keep in mind that while we're all on a journey of similar sorts, there are real differences between what we meant in 18th century France or England when we talked about enlightenment and what the way we're using the term today. But that is part of the real fascinating thing to me, is how we use words in a way that opens us up to both traditions at the same time. And this is not just true in the West now, but it's also true in China itself. One of the really interesting things that I came across in some recent translation is how the word Tao and Taoism was picked up by the Buddhists from the Taoists themselves. And the Buddhists used the term Tao as a way to explain their ideas and their traditions when Buddhism was first taking root in China. And that, to me, is almost exactly like what has happened here in the West with the word enlightenment. We used a word from our own local or regional tradition to explain something that's actually very foreign to it. And in that way, we've found a way to kind of try bringing these ideas together.
So you have thoroughly explained the confusion of the Western mind.
Well, far from it, far from it.
So my first introduction was Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau and a lot of early American poets, and then Alan Watts, and then Buddhism, particularly Zen Buddhism and D.T. Suzuki. And I was like, wow, they knew this, but they were smart enough not to use the word Buddhism because they wanted to get the ideas across without using foreign influence. But in our more modern awareness, we're not afraid of using foreign words like Asian or Chinese or what have you, or even Hindu. So I don't think that the Western man actually thinks of himself as being on a journey, or that enlightenment is even a goal that they should attain. So I think Western materialism is the main focus of the Western mind.
That does weigh us down, doesn't it? That prevents the light from being released, I will say that.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
So it is only those people who are seeking the wisdom of perfection that can see the conversation that you are wanting to have.
Well, doctor, I guess one thing that I immediately pick up on in what you said is the way I spent my summer vacation, or at least part of it. As you said, you started your own discovery reading Emerson and Thoreau, and that was a place that you jumped in. This August, I happened to have a chance to reread Walden Pond, and it was really prompted by the fact that this year is the 200th anniversary of Thoreau's birth.